Hi guys, I, 30, male. All names, places used a fake to protect identity, by the way. I have been a Reddit user for a long time and read relationship posts, a lot of them seeking opinions, and that's what put the idea in my head that I should probably put out a Reddit post about what is happening in my life. Although I didn't think that I would be writing something like this one day, but okay, here goes nothing. I met June, 29, female, when we were in high school. She asked me out to prom, and that's how it all started. We started dating, and I fell in love, and I think she fell for me too. Although right now it's really hard to believe that. But I will go by the assumption that she did fall for me. She was 16, I was 17, and to everyone it seemed like a match made in heaven. I was the captain of the football team, she was the head cheerleader, I was the nerd, she was the life of the party. A beginning of the rom-com, it would seem, but one couldn't be more wrong. June always put a great act of being in love with me in front of everyone. She would act appropriately jealous when any girl approached me, posted me on her socials, and introduced me to her parents. She was the only daughter of her parents, and her father was a businessman. They were insanely rich. As you all can understand, she was pretty spoilt and probably never had any single wish of hers turned down, so obviously introducing me to her parents was a pretty big decision. Whatever doubts I had about our relationship dispersed then. I took that as proof of her loyalty to me. She was pretty high maintenance, but I tried my best to give her princess treatment because I understood her background. It was a Sunday when June took me to her huge house in one of the affluent neighborhoods of our town. We were supposed to have brunch with her parents. By that time, we had already been dating for almost a year. Her father, Matthew, and her mother, Linda, were warm and welcoming. They asked about my family and about my career plans. They seemed to like me a lot. I told them that I was studying to be a doctor and that my parents were both teachers. The lunch went pretty well. After we had finished our food, Linda and June went inside to make us something to drink, so I was left alone with Matthew. I still think about that conversation years later. He turned to me and said, "I think you are a great guy, John, but I'm not sure if you're making the right choice." I was confused and thought that it must be a test of some kind, so I replied confidently that I was pretty sure about my love for June and that if they thought that I needed to do better in something, then I will totally give my everything to live up to their expectations. Matthew shook his head. "It's not that, buddy. If you both end up together for life, no one will be happier than me. My daughter, you see, we love her and I think we did spoil her while growing up. It's very difficult to say no to your only girl, you see. Sometimes I wish we did. You seem like a very grounded person. I'm hoping that being with you will make her sensible. Sometimes I think that she's a little incapable of looking at things from someone else's perspective. I'm very glad that you love her. I trust you, John." At that time, I didn't understand him completely. I just tried to look as solemn as possible and assured him that he could trust me. But I can say with certainty that I understand him now. I think he understood it way back then than me. So our relationship continued and I proposed to June when I started at medical school. You guys know how difficult being a med student is, so for a while it was a long distance relationship. I made sure to call June whenever I got free time, but yes, it was difficult. I didn't realize at that time that even though I was fighting my hardest to make June feel loved and cared for, she, on the other hand, was hardly putting an effort. Sometimes I borrowed my friend's car and drove 3 hours to meet her. One time I had asked her to meet me during the weekend and she had said that she was free, so I drove to meet her, only to find out from her mother that she had gone out on a trip with her friends that morning itself. I think even her parents felt bad for me at that point, and insisted on paying the gas money, which I refused to take. They wouldn't let me go without having dinner with them, so I ended up spending my day with her parents. Linda called June and tried telling her that what she did was wrong, that the least she could have done was inform me about her trip. I could hear June's voice on the other side, and I heard her say, "For God's sake, Mom, stop making such a big deal out of it. I'm trying to have fun, and you're ruining my day. Just ask John to call me before he leaves the house the next time. Problem solved." "He should have called me anyway. It's not like I'll be waiting for him all day, right? My friends came to the house before him, so yeah, I went with them. It seemed like a better option. I gotta go. Bye." When Linda saw me standing there, she was embarrassed. She knew I had heard everything. She told me something about June acting immature and like a kid, and told me once again how sorry she felt. I told her not to worry about it and that I was going to take my leave. After going back to the dorm, I gave it all serious thought. And it struck me how odd it is that she would choose her friends over me, whereas I would run to her any time she called me. So I took my phone, blocked her number. That was probably how it should have stayed, but like I said, June was not used to getting no for an answer. After about a week, I got a call from an unknown number. It was June, calling from her friend's number. She sounded baffled when I picked up. She asked me if I blocked her number. I said yes. She said she found that out just that day when she tried calling me because her Venmo had some issues and she wanted me to pay her nail tech. She accused me of being selfish because I blocked her without even informing her. And that was very horrible of me because I didn't think what would happen to her if she would need something like she needed that day. Apparently, she had to call her dad to make the payment. I said I was sorry, but I didn't have the heart to tell her that I wanted to break up. She laughed and said, "Wait, are you serious? Do you think you can get anyone better than me? I am literally a jackpot for you, John." I pointed out I wasn't even trying to get someone better. I just thought that she doesn't value me, so I won out. She then said, "Oh, I know what this is about. It's about me going out on one friend's trip, isn't it? What's wrong with you? Do you want me to just hang out with you? Good God, you are so controlling." I told her that I had no desire of continuing that conversation and that it was over. I cut the call and thought that, well, that was that then. It's over. It wasn't. The next day, I was woken up by someone knocking at my dorm. It was June. I thought I would never see her again, but here she was. I opened the door and there she stood, looking all fragile and vulnerable, like some sort of damsel in distress. The kind of look that used to make me feel like I had to protect her even though I knew better. She didn't say much at first, just gave me that wide-eyed stare like she was lost. She asked if we could talk, and before I could even say anything, she slipped past me into my dorm room. It was awkward, to say the least. I'd spent the entire night convincing myself I was finally done with her drama, and yet here she was. I should have kicked her out, told her to leave and never come back, but I guess I wasn't ready for the finality of that, so I let her stay. She started talking about how much she missed me, how she realized she'd taken me for granted, and how she was lost without me. She was crying, which she almost never did. June wasn't the crying type. She was the get what she wants type. And damn, she laid it on thick. She started talking about all the good times we had, all the memories we'd made together. She made it sound like she was the only person in the world who really understood me, who really loved me. And maybe that was true. I mean, how many people would put up with the kind of things we've been through? Then she hit me with the bombshell. She said she'd been thinking a lot since the breakup and realized that she didn't want to lose me ever again. She pulled out a ring, yeah, an actual ring, and asked me to marry her. Now, this is where any sane person would have realized they were being manipulated, but I was too caught up in the moment. The way she looked at me, the way she held my hand, it all felt so real. She said all the right things, made all the right promises. She even talked about wanting to change, about becoming a better person. She said she'd go to therapy, do whatever it took. I should have seen through it. But instead, I said yes. I told her I loved her too, and I wanted to marry her. In that moment, oh, the doubts and frustrations just melted away. And I was back to being the idiot who thought love could fix everything. So, yeah, I took her back, and we were engaged by the end of that conversation. She had won, just like she always did. But something in the back of my mind kept whispering that this wasn't going to end well. I pushed that thought away, though, because at that moment I wanted to believe in us. I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. But deep down, I knew better. After June and I got engaged, the next step was to tell her parents, Linda and Matthew. I wasn't exactly looking forward to it, mostly because I wasn't sure how they'd react, considering that first time we had met, Matthew had given me some weird mixed signals, but June seemed confident, almost smug, as if she knew something I didn't. I should have taken that as a sign, but I was too anxious about telling her parents and then wondering about this. We went over to her parents' mansion, which, by the way, looked more like a palace than a home. Matthew, with his usual air of authority, greeted us, and Linda was all smiles. June, in her usual fashion, didn't waste any time. She dropped the news with the kind of nonchalance only someone like her could muster. John and I are engaged. For a moment there was silence, and then to my surprise both Linda and Matthew broke into smiles, congratulating us as if we just told them we won the lottery. It wasn't long before Matthew offered us a place to stay as an engagement present. His penthouse, just a stone's throw away from my medical school. The place was the stuff of dreams. And of course, it was no big deal for them to just hand it over like a set of car keys. Moving in together was supposed to be the start of our new life, but it didn't exactly go the way I imagined. June, true to form, quickly settled in, enjoying her newfound freedom, and I was trying to juggle med school and this new chapter of our relationship. At first it felt like we were building something real. We spent our evenings together, talked about our future, and for a while it almost felt normal. But then June started to change her tune. She began to talk about how intense my studies were, how I needed to focus on becoming a doctor, and how I shouldn't let anything distract me. She was right, of course. Medical school isn't exactly a cakewalk. I thought she was being supportive, but then she suggested I move back to my dorm. You need to be close to your classes, she said. And besides, I can manage on my own here. I don't want to be a burden. It sounded reasonable. I mean, I was neck deep in coursework, and living in the dorm would make things easier, so I agreed. I packed my bags, kissed her goodbye, and went back to my tiny, cramped room on campus, thinking I was doing the right thing. Meanwhile, June had the penthouse to herself. She seemed happy enough when I visited on weekends, but there was something different about her. She wasn't as excited to see me as she used to be. Instead, she was calm, almost indifferent. She was still affectionate, still kind, but the spark was gone. I convinced myself it was a good thing, a sign that we were settling into a more mature, stable relationship. After all, everyone says that the initial rush fades and is replaced by something deeper, right? So I accepted it. I told myself this was what real love looked like. A calm, steady presence rather than the whirlwind we had before. And yet, that little voice in the back of my head kept nagging at me, telling me something wasn't right. But I ignored it, choosing instead to believe that everything was fine. June had convinced me that this was the way things were supposed to be, and like a fool, I bought into it completely. So after I started residency, I moved back in with June, but I used to spend a lot of time at the hospital. We were living in the penthouse her parents had gifted us, and while it was a nice place, June was alone there most of the time. June wasn't working, so she was relying on my salary and money from her dad. I wasn't thrilled about the money from her father, but every time I brought it up, June would get defensive, so I kept my thoughts to myself. One day I accidentally overheard a conversation between June and her dad. June was asking for more money, saying that I was in financial trouble and didn't make enough. She claimed she needed extra cash to maintain her lifestyle, which she said I couldn't afford. Problem was, I was giving her all of my salary. I had no idea where the money was going, and it was confusing to hear her say otherwise, so I decided to confront her about it. I told June I had overheard her conversation with her dad. She looked surprised and said she didn't want me to find out because she was planning a surprise. She explained she was trying to book a venue for our wedding but was short on funds, which is why she was borrowing from her father. I suggested we announce our wedding date and invite our parents to a nice restaurant to celebrate, but June wasn't too enthusiastic about the idea. At that time it seemed odd, but I thought it might be the stress of trying to keep things a secret and planning a surprise or whatever. So I told her that she didn't need to worry about the invitation, that I was going to take care of the rest. I called up our parents, invited them to a restaurant and told them about our wedding plans. I took Matthew aside after the dinner and told him about why she was asking for the money and asked him to not pay for it because he had already helped us a lot. I told him that I have enough savings to afford my own wedding. He patted me on the back and said, "I'm so proud of you, John. You are such a responsible young man. I trust you. Don't tell June that I told you about this, but I had a deal with June that the only way I would let her move out of our house and give the penthouse is if she got engaged with a responsible man whom I approved of. June can be reckless. It's our fault for spoiling her, but at least she is making the right choice by marrying you." Although I didn't let it show on my face, but at the back of my mind, a little voice was asking me to call off the wedding. June had never told me about this condition that her father had set. It almost seemed too perfect a plan that she got engaged to me, got the apartment, and then convinced me to stay in the dorm. It just seemed a little too coincidental. After the wedding, I took a few days off for our honeymoon. My parents gifted us 2 tickets to honeymoon destination, won't be naming, because it will be identifying info. And June's parents covered the hotel expenses. Everything was supposed to be perfect, and for a while it seemed like my worries had been unfounded. One evening, June and I were at the hotel bar having a great time. I realized I'd left my phone in our room, so I went back to get it, leaving June alone. When I returned, I saw her flirting with the bartender, a very handsome guy, I might add. It wasn't just small talk. She was leaning in, and he was tucking her hair behind her ear. I overheard June say, "Catch me sometime later, handsome." I approached and asked her what that was about. June just shrugged and said she was doing it to get a free drink. She seemed a little drunk, so I decided to brush it off. I figured it was just the alcohol talking and didn't think much of it at the time. After that, during our honeymoon, I would sometimes see that guy at my peripheral vision, sometimes beside our pool, sometimes near our room. I thought the guy might be a creep and asked June about her opinion. She said I was overthinking and that the guy was not stalking us or anything. I decided to take her advice and not freak out and enjoy the rest of our stay there. On the last day, June said she wanted to get souvenirs for our families, but she was too sick to go out. She gave me puppy eyes and asked me to go alone and shop for both our families. She said that she would stay back and rest. I agreed and went out. I think that's the day when it happened. I went out, tried to pick the best gifts for our families, and she called the bartender to our room and cheated on me. They started their affair and let me go around oblivious to what was happening in the hotel. I had returned 2 hours later with gifts for our families and a beautiful homemade necklace for June. I look back at that time and feel nothing but pity for myself. June was on her phone the whole flight back home. I asked her if something was up, and she said that she was just updating her girls about the things we did on the trip. I was feeling lightheaded and happy when we got back and started working. Soon it was time for Christmas, and June's parents were supposed to stay with us for a few days. In the few months that followed our honeymoon, a distinct change came over June. She constantly found flaws with everything I did and snapped at the slightest things. I was walking on eggshells around her whenever I was home. She also went out a lot in those months and sometimes didn't even come back. And if I asked her where she was, she would scream at me and call me a control freak. I kept on hoping that things would get better slowly. I was looking forward to the Christmas weekend because I thought that if her parents stayed over, then that would probably uplift June's mood. It was Christmas Eve and June's parents were in our penthouse. We sat down to breakfast when suddenly June said she had something to announce. I was expecting the usual holiday cheer or some minor family drama, but what came next was anything but ordinary. June looked around the table, took a deep breath and said, "I'm pregnant. But before you all react, let me explain. The baby isn't John's, it's Philip's." Philip. The bartender I'd seen June flirt with during our honeymoon. I was still trying to process this bombshell when she continued. "I've been having an affair with Philip. He's everything John isn't. Adventurous, dreamy, and so much more exciting. John is a doctor, and he's just so boring. All he ever thinks about is work." She went on, almost as if reciting a rehearsed speech. "Philip, on the other hand, lives life to the fullest. He's perfect. John, you just don't have the zest for life that Philip does, and let's not forget, you don't have enough money. I know loving someone like Philip requires a lot of resources, and I've been very understanding of that." At this point, I could barely keep my composure. June turned to her father and said, "Dad, I need your help. Can you find a job for Philip? I know you can definitely arrange a separate place for us, and I want John out of the penthouse." She paused, giving her father a meaningful look before adding, "Also, please get a good lawyer. I need to file for divorce." So there it was. The Christmas Eve that was supposed to be filled with holiday joy turned into a surreal scene of betrayal and chaos. It felt like the universe had decided to play a particularly cruel joke on me. I looked around and to my surprise, Matthew looked disappointed. His expression was a far cry from the support June had hoped for. "June," he said, his voice firm and cold, "if you think you're going to be cheered for cheating on such a good guy like John, then you're really stupid. I'm not going to support Philip, and I expect you to leave this house soon." June blinked, clearly shocked. "Why would I leave my house?" she asked, her voice laced with confusion. Matthew sighed, as if explaining something painfully obvious. "Because this penthouse is actually John's. When I said I wanted you to marry a responsible guy, I knew you might try something like this. That's why I kept a huge amount of money aside for John, just in case things went south. You see, John's name is on the lease." June's face went pale. Matthew continued, "I'm definitely going to pay for a lawyer, but not for your lawyer, John's lawyer. I want you to get a job and never come back. You've become a disgrace to our family's good name." He looked at her with a mixture of sadness and disappointment. "I never expected you to stoop so low. I failed as a father to raise a woman of character. Now leave, and if you want a life with Philip, go ahead." June screeched, "You can't do that. I'm your daughter." Linda spoke up next. She said that they're doing this exactly because of that. They were trying to fix their wrong, and if they don't check her then she would probably never understand that she needs to value people who love her. With this, Matthew and Linda got up from the table and themselves started packing June's things. I told them that I would move out, but Linda said, "If you move out, then we would forever be haunted by the guilt that we raised a daughter who ruined a guy who did everything for her. Please don't. This is your penthouse, John. We are sorry and deeply ashamed. Meanwhile, June got up and with absolutely no remorse announced that she would be checking in the same hotel where Philip was staying. Her dad said that he didn't care and she can do as she pleases. By afternoon, they all left and I was left alone to process what happens. So, Reddit, AITA, for still staying in the penthouse? Should I leave? I am so not sure what to do. Update 1. Hey guys, so I have been reading your comments. It's been about 3 days since June was forced out by her parents. Thanks for all your kind words and support. Matthew arranged for a great lawyer and the divorce has been filed. Yesterday, though, June called up crying. She said that Philip refused to take responsibility as the father and he would be flying back home. She wants me to take her back and convince Matthew that things are okay between us. This time, I didn't even give it a second thought. I flatly refused and cut the call. I called up Matthew later and informed him of her situation. I thought he deserved to know because obviously she is his daughter after all. Matthew said he would keep me updated and in turn, I will keep you guys updated. Update 2. Matthew called me today and updated me. Philip has indeed cleared out. Matthew said that they are allowing her to move in with them till she has the baby. The baby is blameless and they have decided to pay for every expense of the baby and raise it, but they're not ready to pay for June. They've informed her that she has to take up a job and pay rent if she wants to stay in their house. They also informed her that she cannot rekindle her affair with Philip, who seemed to be only after Matthew's business and nothing else. Also, apparently June had a gambling problem. She was actually gambling all of my salary away. This came to light when Matthew forced her to tell him about what she did with my salary. So, yeah, I think I never even knew June properly. She is such a complex character. Matthew told me that they want the baby to know me so that he has a positive role model in his life. I'm not sure about it though. I don't know if I ever want to see June again, but I guess I'll think about it. I owe Matthew and Linda big time. Update 3. Hi guys, it's been a pretty long time since my last update, I think. Almost 3 months. Yeah, so our divorce will probably get finalized next month and I'm almost done with my residency. June gave birth and I did go to see the baby even though I didn't want to see June. I took soft toys and baby clothes with me. Linda and Matthew were really glad to see me and so was I. I had to tell them though that I didn't want to be involved in the baby's life because I don't think that it was possible to be involved with the baby without being involved with the mother. I told them that I was going to always treat June's baby and wouldn't accept any money in turn, but I don't want to be actively involved. They said they understood. They seemed to be genuinely worried about the baby, and honestly, I understood their worry. I told them they can approach me anytime they want for help with something because to me, they were no different than my own parents. They smiled and hugged me. I genuinely feel bad for June's parents, but there's nothing more I could do. While getting out of the hospital, I passed by June's room and her door was open. I heard her call out to me, so I stopped and looked back, but I didn't go into her room. She asked me to come inside, but I told her that I had to leave because I was in a hurry. I think she understood that it was finally over between us, so she just nodded and looked away. I hurried out the building and felt a stinging pain, thinking about what it could have been had June not cheated. But I do believe in moving on, so I'm trying to not dwell on the past. I have started taking therapy and it helps me reconnect with myself and my emotions. The money that Matthew had set in my name was much more than I expected. All of my student debt is paid off, and I'm doing great career-wise. I hope I will be able to heal and start my life afresh. Thanks for being with me till the end. This was the last update. Bye. Have a great weekend, you all. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.